Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the first episode of Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to be reviewing the 2019 film Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho.
Yes.
Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
Very well-known film.
I thought it was pretty fitting because we randomly selected this film, but for our first episode to do this, because it was the Best Picture winner at the Oscars last year, so kind of fitting.
And also one of my favorite movies from last year.
Yes, I agree. What do you think, Best Picture last year? Do you agree with it winning?
Oh, of course. I think it's deserving.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood winning it. I wouldn't have been mad.
Yeah.
But honestly, I kind of thought last year was pretty weak. Like, what do you have? Like, Ford versus Ferrari?
I thought last year...
Parasite was just...
2019 was a great year for film, especially coming out of 2018, which was just the worst year ever for film.
That's true.
But a lot of, like, the really good movies didn't get Best Picture noms. Because, like, you know, we had things like Ford vs. Ferrari, Little Woman, which were good movies,
They
but...
just had big budgets.
Yeah. They weren't, like...
Like...
There were so many other films that should have been in Best Picture category.
There were some, like, really great indie films last year.
Yeah.
Some low-budget films, and they did not get nominated.
Yep.
Uncut Gems, that's last year.
Yeah, Uncut Gems was probably my favorite film from last year, not gonna lie.
Uncut Gems is really good.
Yeah, I was surprised that...
Yeah.
Well, like, not really surprised. Oscars don't usually like thrillers, suspense movies, so... But,
That's true.
I mean...
Or Adam Sandler.
It deserved something. But yeah, I was happy.
All right.
I thought of all the movies that were up there, Parasite definitely deserved a win, so that was pretty cool. And it was like the first foreign film to ever win Best Picture, so that was cool.
Yeah, congrats. It's totally deserving. Do you want to give a quick summary?
Yes, I will get the summary. Okay, plot summary. This is from Google. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. Whoa. Sounds
well
cool.
said.
Yeah.
Well said. I mean, it kind of makes it sound a bit more dramatic than it is.
It does.
Because they're not actually really at war with each other.
Also, they call them a
really
clan. It's like very...
Yeah, it's like 4 people. That's interesting terminology from Google. I wonder if that's just off Wikipedia or IMDb. Whatever. Yeah, I think that it's a great film, really, and it really does show the structure of class and that whole idea, kind of rich versus poor, that very well. But also kind of like what people will do when they're in need. And I think that it's extremely well done.
Yeah, the thing I like about the movie is that it finds that like nice balance between being a dark comedy and also like kind of satirical while also making like very like direct points about society and like the class system. It
is pretty funny. I think that honestly, maybe the language barrier, people don't quite find it as... Dude, I think it's hilarious. Like,
yeah.
There are many moments where I laugh out loud during this film.
Especially, like, the first half is super funny.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the thing that's cool about this film is it's kind of, like, separated into 3 different, like, mini movies, you know? Like, the first third is, like...
Yeah,
it's, like, this...
Sure. And you feel the shift, for sure. It's kind of expertly done.
Like, the first third is, like, it's comedy heist kind of movie. The second bit is, like, it's more of a... psychological thriller, kind of suspenseful, and then the last part almost gets into like horror territory with like action and stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the last part it's definitely a movie that I don't want to say that you have to watch twice, but I would say it's a pretty good idea because the first time you watch it, the kind of twists and turns are quite shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And to really like fully experience it, I feel like you kind of need to watch it twice. I don't know, when I watched it the first time, like, spoiler alert, there are like some serious twists in this movie and they hit me hard. Like,
Yeah.
you do not see them coming, really.
I think that what's interesting about this movie is, so I just looked it up. It had a budget of 11.5 million, which,
Very low, actually.
yeah, it's not a
for a
huge
film.
budget, but even though 11.5 million, it's not a huge budget, but they did use their money wisely, and they had to like create such ginormous sets for this film. Like, not
That
only
is
the
true.
house, the house was all made for the film. So
Oh,
they
wow.
actually built
I didn't
that
know
house. Yeah, so
That's
that's
incredible. I thought
Yeah.
they just found. Wow,
no,
that's
they
amazing.
actually built
And the
that
house really is like a character.
Yeah.
It is.
And then the other part
Yeah.
that they actually built and was in a set was the actual like street where they live, where the
Oh,
family
really?
lives. So
Mm.
where like when it, because they had to create it in a set because of the flood scene,
Right.
because they
Oh,
had to
that's
flood the
true.
set. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So the production design and set design for this film is actually really incredible. But we'll go
Yeah,
into that
and
more
honestly,
later.
I feel like so much of this film, it's so well done, but it's not really in your face. So things like the score, things like the cinematography, like, it's so well done, yet it's not like flashy, like, I don't know, Blade Runner 2049, that has like super in your face color choices and shots. Like, this film, you can't really, like, unless you really are watching it with kind of that artsy eye, you might not even really consider how beautiful it is, but it truly
Yeah,
is.
it's
like,
very subtle.
yeah, it's really subtle, but it's kind of rewarding in a way because when you look at it from that perspective, you kind of start noticing all these little details that are like subtly thrown in to all the sets and just the shots. It's really well done.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what were your standout scenes?
My standout scenes. All right, first, I guess we can kind of do this one by one. Obviously,
Yeah.
like, I think it's really the standout scene of the whole film. For anyone watching it, is the birthday party. Pretty much the climax of the film is at this birthday party, and it's just a really shocking scene, honestly, because throughout the whole film, you don't really have much violence. Like, there's a little bit, but it's more like a comedy, dark comedy kind of thing. So to see like these people get their skulls bashed in with rocks and like stabbed in the chest, it's like a wake up call. Like,
It
is
like
a
all of
bit
a sudden
shocking.
becomes a Tarantino film.
Yeah, literally.
I love the best part of that scene for me is the turn of like the father
Mhm.
killing the Park father.
Yeah.
Because there's that instance where, because the entire film is kind of set that up, because even from the
There's
start,
this, the
we're setting up
motif
the fact that
of the Park father
Yeah, the
can't
rich
stand the
father.
smell of the poor people. He even says like,
Yeah,
there's a
so then
smell
there's
of
that-
people on the subway.
there-
Like, it's
yeah,
it's set up from the beginning. So when the Kim father sees him like repulsed by the smell of the
he like pinches his
Yeah.
nose. Yeah.
and then it triggers something and he
And
just
then he
goes
just,
crazy
like,
and
turns
kills
him
him too.
Yeah, when I was prepping for watching this was my third time watching it, because I saw it when it first came out in theaters, which was really
Nice.
cool.
I didn't see it in
And then I watched it
theaters.
again. Yeah, watching it in theaters was great because like there was just something that like, even though most of the film is pretty funny and like tame, there's just this underlying unsettling tone that just like takes over you the entire time,
Mhm.
where you just know something's gonna happen,
Yeah.
but you just don't know when and what's gonna happen.
Right.
And it's kind of, I think the main point of that is like through the score, because the score is nice, but it just has that like there's something wrong with what's
Yeah.
happening. But you
I
don't know
agree.
what.
What was your
so my standout
scene?
scenes? Yeah, I got three. For me, the best scene in my opinion is when they first find the basement.
Oh yeah,
That's
for sure. That's
favorite
my
scene.
second. That's a great scene.
Yeah, entering the basement. So when it's such a tonal shift because the start of that scene, they're just chilling on the couch, they're enjoying
getting a little
chilling in this rich giant
off
house.
that whiskey.
Yeah. And then the old maid shows up, and it all of a sudden everything gets tense. It's super creepy.
Super creepy, dude.
She goes downstairs and she sees her like trying to push that cabinet out of the way and like screaming, and it's so like freaky, and you have no clue what's gonna happen, and then you have that beautiful tracking shot of mother
it's
running
all silhouetted
down
and completely backlit. To be honest, I just love the way any shot in that hallway looks. It's all backlit with this really green, dingy light, and it's so beautiful. Like, it's all silhouette, it's all tracking, and it just builds up. Like, it's a great shot. I agree.
And then the last one was the flood scene.
Yeah, I
absolutely love that.
That scene is
that
really
sequence of.
It's sad, dude. Like,
it's beautiful.
It's really sad. Just watching this family, even though they kind of have a better life now and they're making a decent amount of money from working as all these positions for the Park family, just watching them have their home destroyed and, you know, taking whatever valuable possessions they have and kind of leaving it and then going to sleep in the gym, like, it's powerful.
There's just something that was just so brilliant about how that scene was executed and how it shows them running from the Park's house all the way back down, and as they get further and closer to their house, the flooding gets worse and worse and worse, and it's like a literal like showing of the class, you know? They are higher up.
Yeah, that is one thing that I think stands out the whole time is literally the metaphorical use of stairs in this film. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Every time characters go upstairs or downstairs, you can feel the shift of the class. Literally, even within the house, you have to walk upstairs to get to that beautiful mansion. And when you walk down the stairs in there, you get to this old bunker thing. And these people who have been living, like this man who's been living there for like 15 years, living off of like whatever whatever food is in the fridge at night. Like, just the use of stairs. Even when they're running back, like you said, with the flood, they run down this massive set of stairs. It's just using that literally and metaphorically that they're going down again.
Yeah, I want to take a quick break before we get into the actual review.
Yeah, for sure. All right, welcome back.
We are back.
Yes, it is time to get into the actual review of the film.
We've separated 11 different categories. Actually, no, 12 different categories. Which each have a specific percentage that it can be out of, and then at the end we will tally up the entire percentage and give you a total percentage for the film. And we have each done one separately, so we'll compare and contrast. But these are our categories that we are talking about. So we have story/originality, which will be out of 10%. The beginning of the film, which is out of 5%, the ending of the film, which is out of 5%, screenplay/dialogue out of 8%, the soundtrack or score, which is out of 7%, production design, but that also includes costumes and set, which is 6%, location selection, 6%, cinematography is out of 10%, editing is out of 8%, acting is out of 10%, and then we have overall entertainment value, which is out of 10%, and then finally overall technical achievement, which is out of 15%. All of that added up is 100%, and that is the highest score a movie can get.
And
So,
spoiler alert, it will probably never happen. But if it
Who
does,
knows?
you know, that'd be pretty
That'd
cool.
be- maybe one day.
That'd be,
We'll see.
yeah, maybe one day. Maybe Parasite, I don't know. We'll see.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, so our first category is story/originality. That's not the same thing as screenplay. This is not how well written it is. This is more how unique it is. Does it tell, like, the theme of it, that kind of thing.
This is more the overall plot points and stuff.
Yeah. And personally, I feel like it is an extremely unique film with great story and a great theme and great plot points. I've really never truly seen anything like it. And that sounds like kind of cliche, but it's true. I mean, this film, while it does speak on an issue that many other films have spoken on, it does it in such a creative and unique way. Like, dissecting class structure and the issues we have as a society, kind of rich versus poor. My overall percentage for story and originality is 9% out of 10.
Damn.
Wow. The reason it's not a 10 out of 10, I mean, I said it was like super unique, but at the end of the day, the overall theme of kind of the class struggle, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that it's been done a lot of times, but kind of that overall theme of, oh wow, the rich people don't understand the poor people, like, that's been done probably a million times. And this is a really unique way of doing it, but at the end of the day, it's not something totally new that I've literally never seen before.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this was easily the most original film I saw all of last year.
Yes.
It was, even though, yes, I do agree that there are a lot of other films out in the world all through time that have dealt with class struggles. This is a totally new way of approaching it, and they actually kind of approached it in a way that was satirical and kind of making fun of the actual cliche plot points that we have seen throughout film history. Also, the arc is something that I really want to focus on, is that each character in this film has a really defined arc. And that's something that is super important to the story. And that's something that I think is phenomenal, because a lot of films, they give a great arc to their main character, but all the other supporting characters are literally just there to support that main character. Where this is more of an ensemble film. Everyone has a moment, and the development of each character is heightened in this film. So, I gave this a 10 out of 10, 10%. For story and
I agree with that.
So
yeah, I totally agree with 10 out of 10.
For you,
9 out of 10.
9% for you, 10% for me. So that's pretty close. Let's move on to the beginning of the film, which is worth 5%. What do you think?
You can take a stab at. Okay, I'll go. I really like the beginning of this film. The beginning of this film is really, really, really well done. It is, like, it's really funny. Even the opening scene of them sitting in their house getting, like, the fumigation or whatever to clean the street or something. To be honest, I don't really know why that's done, but they, like, leave their windows open to kill the cockroaches. Like, they're, like, struggling to find Wi-Fi. Even that opening scene is so funny, and it's so casual, displaying their struggles, but, like, they're not really, really upset about it, you know? Like, this is just kind of their normal way of life. Like, it's such a funny and casual way of portraying, like, how down bad they are, honestly. Like, they have it tough, but they're, you know, trying to find which corner of the house has Wi-Fi. All the way, I really consider the beginning of this film to be around 50 minutes, kind of up until that twist where we get the basement. And the whole beginning kind of plays out like its own mini movie, kind of like you said, like each act is its own film. Like, honestly, if you cut the whole film off at 50 minutes and just had them succeed in totally breaking into this family and having a nice dinner together kind of as a celebration, it wraps up so nicely. The whole beginning, them infiltrating it, it's funny, it's really light. I laughed definitely the most during the beginning. This is a really entertaining part of the film. Even though it's so long, it's longer than the other two acts individually. But it's probably the most entertaining part of the film for me. I'm giving it a 5% out of 5. Like,
amazing.
To me, it's kind of the perfect beginning. It's like a 3-act structure in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's like a standalone little short, the beginning, and I love that. I think that what I really like about it is that we get such a we get this really interesting glimpse at who our characters are right off the bat, and we know the relationship that everyone has with each other in this family. And that's super cool. Also, the fact that within the first, 2 or 3 minutes of this film, we know who each character is, where they are in life, like where they are, the setting. We know basically everything there is to know about these characters right off the bat. And then, of course, we grow to learn more of their secrets and stuff, but we know their overall characters right off the bat. And yeah, I agree with you. I love the fact that it's super funny. We have them, but it's funny, but also kind of sad, We have them sitting there trying to figure out where the Wi-Fi signal is. They open their windows so they can get free fumigation. And then also, like, people in the alleyway peeing and stuff. I mean, right off the bat, we know exactly where they are in life. And I think it's a really solid scene. The only part for me that's missing in this scene is that it was focused more on story and dialogue and not as focused on, like, technical aspects like cinematography. Like whenever a movie starts, I always want a movie to start with like a really nice shot. Like that's how I like a movie to start. So that's the only thing that was missing for me. I kind of disagree
with you. Like honestly, the opening shot, it's like a really long shot kind of those shades and like stuff happening outside, and then it the camera lowers to reveal that he's been sitting there the whole time, like finding out the Wi-Fi password has been changed. I really like that opening shot. But I guess I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, it's shot very basically, the first scene. It's just kind of MCU to MCU.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm giving the beginning a 4% out of 5%. So solid.
If you've been keeping track, that means we're equal right now. You gave story a 10, I gave it a 9. Beginning a 5.
Okay. So let's move on to the ending. The ending. I have a lot to say about the ending.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Let me start this off. Because I got a little rant.
Big spoiler alert. This ending is a fat twist. I know we already kind of talked about the birthday scene, but if you haven't watched this film now, you should really go watch it so we don't spoil everything for you.
Yeah.
All right.
And the thing about the ending of this film is when I'm talking about the ending, I'm not talking about the birthday scene. I am talking about everything that happens after the birthday scene, like the last 15 minutes of the film. Mm-hmm. I do not like the ending of this film. I'm just going to say that. I don't like the ending of this film. I feel like it is overkill. It's giving me too much information that it is making me, as the viewer, feel dumb. It's making me feel like the director is telling me every single little detail because they don't think that I understand what's going on. And that's my problem with the last bit, is that, of course, I don't want it to end right when the birthday scene ends because that's way too abrupt of an ending. But I remember the first time I watched this film, I was sitting in the theater, and I was like, wow, this movie is amazing. And right after the birthday scene happened, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting a glimpse of their life now. It's slowing down. And then there were moments where I kept thinking it was going to end. And I was saying to myself, end here, end here, end here. And it just kept going on. And it kept going and going. And I was like, there were so many parts where you could have ended and it would have been perfect. but it just went on for too long for me. So this is what I think. Of course, the film actually ends with him writing a letter to his father, and it ends with him looking up and being like, "Oh, I have a plan," right? So where I think would have been a nice way to end this film is either you end it with him in the like hill seeing the light flashing, because that to me is ambiguous enough that it lets the audience kind of have to think for themselves, but it also gives enough information that will be like, oh, the father is in the basement. Because the minute you see that blinking light, it clicked for me right away. I was like, the father's in the basement.
Yeah.
Boom. And that would have been a stellar ending. But if you want to nail that in a little harder, I get that. Some people don't love ambiguous endings. For me, I love a good ambiguous ending, but some people don't like that, so I get it. So where I would have ended it then is the scene where older self, him and his mother, buy the house. And there's that shot of them in the backyard.
Hugging.
And the father... Yeah, he comes out of the basement and then walks over to them. I think that would have been a beautiful way to end it, because it's open-ended, where people can say, oh, did that actually happen? Or most people are going to go, well, no, that didn't happen. That's the son writing in his letter what he wants to happen, but we don't know if that's actually going to happen. I actually thought it was going to end there when I was watching the movie for the first time.
Oh, yeah, I totally did as well.
Yeah, it had to cut back to him actually in his basement writing the letter, and it's like shoving it in your face. It's like, no, this didn't actually happen. And for me, it was just too much. It was kind of overkill. And unfortunately, due to this ending, it definitely lowers its overall grade for me. I'm giving the ending a 1% out of 5%.
Oh, wow. See, okay. Let me give my, rebuttal. I totally agree with you. First of all, that the birthday party scene, obviously, you can't end it there. But I literally, when I was watching this for the first time and for the second time, I thought it would have been the perfect ending for him to be on the hill and see the flashing light. To me, that is literally... I get that it's a bit ambiguous, like you said, but it does give you enough information. You know that the father's still alive, and it almost lets you kind of think about, where would he go now? I also agree that when I was watching it and I saw that last shot of, well, not the last shot of the father walking out into the backyard and them all hugging, I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful way to end. And then cuts back to him in the basement. I was like, oh, what's happening now? Is this going to be another twist? And then it's just not. It's just him basically restating what I already know that's happened 3 times. I totally agree with you there. But I think that you're kind of to me, the ending is more than just that. The middle, I can't say definitively where the middle ends and the ending starts, but to me, you just gotta, I think that you gotta give the ending more credit, because it's you already have this twist when they go down and reveal the basement, and then you have another twist of, oh my god, I just watched the main character get his head bashed in and his sister dies. That to me is so bold of a choice to make that it kind of almost balances out with the kind of long drawn out real ending.
Fair enough. But when I was thinking about the ending, I was thinking more after that scene.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know if
I think
this
I kind of
is
include that as well.
Yeah, see, I didn't include that when I was thinking about it. I was thinking more the last 20 minutes.
All right. Even if I don't include that, I still think that it's a pretty good ending. Him waking up in the hospital and laughing as the cops trying to read him his Miranda. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I did.
I thought that was really funny. And it's really funny too how they're at the funeral home looking at his sister's ashes and he still can't stop laughing.
That was another spot where I was it could have ended there. Even though that would have been a super weird way to end. That was also kind of
Yeah.
like would have been an interesting way to end it.
All right. I'm going to give the ending a 3% out of 5
3%.
because I really
Okay,
like
cool.
I do really like the way that it ends with him living in the basement. I think that's a great way to tie it kind of back almost. And yeah, it's almost like the same thing that happened to the housekeeper with trying to like leech off the rich family, and then it ends up not working out and he lives in the basement. Same thing happens for the father, like, and then he sends the letter with Morse code.
Yeah.
I still like it. I totally see where you're coming from though. I think 3%'s a bit more fitting than 1%. I'm not going that
Fair
harsh
enough.
on it. But I do
What
agree
do
that
you
the
what do
ending
you
is
think
lacking.
is more important in a film, the beginning or the ending? Like, what's your
Dude,
opinion?
that's a tough question. I mean, I'm gonna say the ending because, like, the setup. Oh, they're both so important. Like, I don't know how you can ask that question, but
I don't know.
like,
For me, the ending is what makes or breaks a film for me.
yeah,
Like,
I
you can
agree.
have
But
a
at
slow
the same
beginning
time,
for
like,
me, but if you have a stellar ending, I will immediately think that film is much better than maybe it isn't that great of a film, but if it has an amazing ending, I will really like that movie.
that's
And
true. Okay, I
and then it's
I
the
kind of agree with you, but at the same time, like, if there's a bad setup with a great ending, like, to me at the beginning, it just being slow, that's not the only issue it could have. Like, you could have terrible character development, and then if that happens, even if there is a sick ending, like, you don't really care because you already hate the movie because it like wasted an hour and a half of your time watching this terrible
yeah,
beginning.
that's
To
true.
me, they're
But
so
also if
hand in
it
hand.
yeah, it is hand in hand. If it doesn't set up properly, the ending isn't going to be great. But
I think
like
it
it could
honestly kind of
definitely
depends on the genre. Like,
yeah.
if it's an
Like
action
there's
film,
films for me like I don't know, Shutter Island, like for me,
right?
I don't I I think Shutter Island is a good movie, but overall I don't think it's amazing, but I think that the ending is amazing. And
Yeah, I
therefore
mean, I see where you're coming from.
all of a sudden that film is so much better in my eyes. But
Right.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Anyways, let's
I
move
guess I
on
kind of
to
agree, but I think it's pretty. They're kind of hand in hand. To me, they're kind of
yeah,
equal.
they are. They are.
Yeah.
Let's move on to what's next? What's next?
Screenplay and
Moving
dialogue.
on to screenplay and dialogue. So this is more focused on the actual writing. So like if the dialogue is cheesy or not, like all that kind of stuff.
I do think the screenplay is a great screenplay. I think that the dynamic all the characters have with each other is it's so funny and kind of like wacky enough that it's like interesting. Like, it's not so relatable that it's no longer interesting. Like, it's like you're basically like watching an actual real life conversation, but it's also not crazy enough that it's totally not relatable. I think it draws such a nice line between those two, and it makes like these really interesting dynamics that are totally believable. Like, I could totally see every character in this film existing in real life. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe not the crazy guy living in the basement, but pretty much aside from that, all the characters written masterfully. And to be honest, the only reason I'm giving it a 6%, the only real reason for that is because at the end of the day, like, I can't really tell if the dialogue is good or not. I mean, like, some scenes I do feel like are a bit boring, kind of like very predictable almost. I think it is great writing, but I can't really give it a higher score when the direct translation is like not. I can't tell what it is, so I don't know if this is just me like laughing because I don't know. I'm giving it a 6 out of 8. I think that's pretty fitting for this.
6 out of 8. Yeah, so I think that the screenplay and dialogue is super strong. Super strong. There's like no cheesy dialogue at any point in this film, which is rare. Also the fact that the dialogue plays into the satire of it all. So they have all these over the top moments, like for example the hot sauce scene with the napkin.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so over the top with the music swelling and like her fainting, that it's so over the top that it's funny and that it plays into that satire, and that's what I love, and this film does perfectly. Um, Really, the only aspect, the reason I'm giving it a 7% out of 8%, and the only reason is the fact that I don't know, there's some slow moments in this film, especially like a couple of scenes in the car and stuff. There's just some moments where it kind of dwells down a little bit. And also, of course,
I agree.
even though the ending isn't specific dialogue and stuff, it's still a whole part of the screenplay. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7%.
All right. Soundtrack is next.
Soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I went on Spotify after I watched it, and I kind of listened to a couple of the songs, and the score is beautiful. Like it's really, it's really nice, and it fits the atmosphere so well. There's a lot of films, that have like a main score or a theme song that plays throughout the movie, and even though it's beautiful, usually, it just doesn't fit. You know, the one I'm thinking about is Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver has that really beautiful score that they reuse throughout the entire film, but it doesn't always fit.
I agree with you.
The tone of the film. So that's something that this score did really well, is that it fits the mood and tone and atmosphere of every scene, and every scene and sequence in this film has a different tone. And as whoever composed the soundtrack, their job is a lot harder because they have to match that tone each time. And as I was talking about before, when I watched this in the theater, there was the fact that throughout the entire movie I was kind of on the edge of my seat, not because anything was happening in the film, but I think that was due to the score, because even though the score is beautiful, it has those like little notes that are just kind of creepy. And it's just kind of underneath it all, there's something dwelling. And that's what creates that tension in you when you're watching it. So, but then there are, when I'm looking at the soundtrack, there are some moments where it's a little basic, like just piano and stuff, and nothing crazy. Like, it's not Hans Zimmer, right? It's just, it's kind of subtle. There's some moments that I feel like the soundtrack did need a little bit more to heighten it. So I'm going to give it an overall 5% out of 7%.
All right. I agree with you, really. I think that this soundtrack is beautiful at the end of the day. And it really does really nicely fit every single scene. You can tell that this is not just, make a piano song and just throw it in there. Like, obviously that doesn't really happen in major films, but you can tell that they really, really spent their time with this score. It's so subtle, like you said. You can never really find yourself feeling like it's overpowering everything. And yet there are moments where all you hear is the score, but still it doesn't feel like it's like, whoa, oh my god, like where did those violins come from, you know? It's so beautiful, but at the same time it's really quiet almost and serene. I feel like the scenes where it does swell it's comedic in a way. Like you said, the napkin scene and she faints and it swells. I think that this score has personality, and to be honest, I'm giving it a 6 out of 7%. The only real reason I don't think it's perfect is because it's so subtle and laid back and like under everything. I think for a soundtrack to kind of reach the perfect level, it almost needs to be like like something you could actually listen to while you're not watching it. Like, I would never listen to any of these songs, but I think that it fits the movie perfectly, and I totally agree with all the decisions made with it. I think it's a great score. 6 out of 7.
Okay, so that's a 6% and a 5%. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the back half of our grading.
Sure.
Okay, and we're back.
Yes. And straight into our next point, which is production design, out of 6.
And that is including, so that's costumes and built or contained set pieces.
Yes. I think that this movie has, like, immaculate set and costume design. I'll start with costumes. Like, it's honestly kind of incredible. It's like, so once again, this movie just has like this theme of not being in your face, but at the same time being incredible. All the costumes are so well thought out, and there's serious costume choices, there's comedic costume choices, like when Mr. Kim and Mr. Park are dressed up as the Native Americans. There's all sorts of different costume design pieces that they change into nice clothing whenever they go to the park house. So almost the costumes tell a story. And as for the sets, I mean, as you said, they built the house for the film. They built the street. Everything is extremely detailed. The art, just everything about the sets is hyper detailed, and it all fits. It's all very realistic. You never feel like something is taking away from your experience. Even the crazy hidden basement, it just feels like it's in the right place. It just feels like it fits. Everything about it. So I'm giving it a 6% out of 6. I think it's pretty much perfection in terms of set design.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. I think that this is like top quality production design. I mean, the house in itself is so incredible, and it's so fitting to who the characters are. And then the basement, containing that basement and how that stairwell goes down, because they had to build that entire stairwell into the basement, because it's a tracking shot, right? Mm-hmm. We follow the mother as she goes down from the pantry all the way down. So that set piece in itself is so cool, and the lighting had to be really focused so that they got that like silhouetted look for that shot. The street during the flood sequence, I mean, that is top quality set design. Also that giant stairwell that's flooding when they're running down.
I mean, that shot is like so beautiful. I love that. I love it.
So, and then costumes, as you were saying, it's subtle, but the costumes are so fitting for each character, you know? There isn't anything that feels out of place. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm giving this a 6 out of 6% on production design.
And honestly, if anyone says anything different, I honestly think they're crazy, because this is one of, if not the strongest element of this whole film, to me at least.
Yeah.
And that fits like really well into with location selection.
So the next category is location selection, which is also out of 6%. And then the difference here is that we're looking more at the actual locations chosen in the film. So not built set pieces, but actual chosen locations that they filmed at.
And to be honest, there isn't much in terms of locations that isn't the house, because the house is like pretty much the entire movie takes place at the Park Mansion. But when they do venture away from the house, like say the office or even like the internet cafe at the start, it still is incredible. They didn't just like build these 2 amazing sets and then just kind of go out and film decent everything else. You know, they obviously very purposely picked these locations. The office has a great aesthetic to it. Whenever they're driving around down the street at night, it feels really nice. It's super cinematic. The way they shot everything in the car, all the stuff outside is very purposeful, obviously.
Yeah.
To be honest, there's not much in terms of location that they shot at other than the house. Maybe the street outside the house, I guess is a pretty big location, like outside the CCTV camera. Yeah, I guess I'll give it a 5 out of 6. I'm giving it a 5 out of 6 because the moments that they do go away from the house are really well done, but there is a bit of a lack of variety. So I guess that's why it's not a 6 out of 6, because there is very little variety. And while it is beautiful, the sets that they use, I feel like you can't really give a 6 out of 6 to something that's pretty much all shot in the same place.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for me, the location selection is really strong. The ones that stood out to me personally were that opening sequence where they're sitting at that corner store at night.
Oh, yeah.
And they're drinking, and he's discussing the job opportunity. I mean, that is really good location selection, because not only do we get the entire atmosphere of that place in Korea where this film is located, but it also, like, with all the neon lighting behind them from the store and all of this natural lighting that's getting thrown onto them and kind of like blending onto their faces is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is there's a scene where they're in a tunnel when they're running down during the flood, and that tunnel is like it's a real tunnel. It's backlit with all this yellow and orange lighting that's coming in, and they are soaking wet, and it's their only like moment of being undercover while they're trying to get back to their house, and that's just a beautiful shot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, overall location selection, I agree with you. It's mostly at the house, but when it does stray away, it does a really good job at containing the entire vibe and look of the film. So I'm also going to give it a 5% out of 6%.
All right, and in case you couldn't tell, we've been pretty excited about this next category, cinematography, because we've been mentioning it almost constantly. I almost feel like a lot of things like production design and location scouting are like really closely tied to cinematography.
Yeah.
And once again, the cinematography does not disappoint. This is it's incredible. It's so beautiful. Every single scene. I can't really think of a scene that is shot poorly or the colors are poor. I mean, the lighting, everything about this movie's cinematography is just masterful. The way that the house feels, the way they shot it, the light is so white and pristine. Everything inside of it feels so clean versus the contrast of literally anywhere other than the house or the BMW or the office. Everything is sort of tinted yellow and green, and it really makes you notice the difference between this huge mansion and the streets. Like that they show this contrast with the cinematography. It's very well done. There's no jarring camera movements here. It's so smooth. Everything, even when it's not on a tripod, it is very smooth. Even the flooding scene is shot extremely still, and I really like the vibe that it gives this film. They're not out here filming stuff handheld when it gets dramatic. They keep that composure with the camera, and I think it really works out in its favor. So I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Bold
wow,
claims.
10 out of 10 from Ben Taylor.
Yes, master cinematographer.
Yeah. Yes, so for me, cinematography, I agree, is beautiful. There are some, like, the standout scenes, obviously, for me, is the flood scene. I think that is the most beautiful sequence in this entire film. It just, each shot, because especially the kind of montage of them running down towards their house, each shot is just perfectly executed. with those wide angled shots that show off this giant set piece, and like it's just beautiful with the rain coming down on them and them just soaking wet. But then yeah, I was talking about the tracking shot into the basement. I love that shot. I think it was one of the best shots from last year, that simple tracking shot. And then yeah, once again, just the simple scenes, like that scene at the corner store. It's done really nicely with like really beautiful lighting, and yeah, the color contrast is really nice. This film had a really subtle color palette that was mostly focused on like whites and shades, with like hints of yellow and green.
Yes.
But it was like it's done really nicely. And also a scene that I want to mention is that the birthday scene, even though it's such a dark and grim scene, it's shot in broad daylight with like white. Everyone's wearing white.
Yeah.
And then there's that contrast of the blood, the red. And that's like really well done color selection. The only reason that I'm not giving this a 10 out of 10, I'm actually giving the cinematography an 8 out of 10, 8%,
Ooh.
is because personally, I think that there are definitely a few scenes in this film that, even though they're shot well, they're kind of simplistic. That's my issue with it. Is like, for me, for it to be a 10 out of 10 for cinematography, every single shot has to be perfect. And for me, there are some sequences, like for instance, when he's driving in the car, or even like that opening scene where they're just sitting in their basement. Even though they're still nice shots, they're not like amazing. They're a little simplistic.
Right.
So that is the reason why I'm giving it an 8%.
Yeah, me personally, I find beauty in the simplicity, but I kind of see where you're coming from.
Fair enough.
I agree with you, kind of, but I still think it's a 10 out of 10. Either way,
Awesome.
Well shot. Yeah. All right. Next category is editing. This is
Editing.
Pretty broad, although I guess color grading I would consider more cinematography, but this is more, I guess.
Yeah, I think editing, we're
creative
more talking
timing.
about the pacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, editing for me, I think this was the best edited film of last year, next to Uncut Gems.
Did it win best
And the
editing
fact-
at the Oscars?
No, it didn't. And the fact that this film didn't win best editing is baffling to me. I think Ford vs. Ferrari won best editing.
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
haven't
not
even
mistaken.
seen Ford vs. Ferrari, so
Honestly, it only won best editing because it's like really like
race car
scenes,
like
and
come on,
fast-paced, and yeah.
it's like a shoe-in.
But for
Wait,
me,
didn't 1917
the
win?
editing. No, not editing. I don't think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm totally thinking cinematography. Damn.
Yeah, 1917. Let's
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the editing in this movie is like near perfect for me.
Right.
I love how it's done, and this film did win so much at the Oscars. I
It
mean,
did. It won
best
6,
screenplay,
right?
It won best director.
6 Oscars.
I think so. Yeah, it won best foreign film, best director, best screenplay, best picture. But it should have won best editing, in my opinion. It's just so well executed, and that scene, the scene that really proves to me how well and edited this entire film is that scene where they're trying to clean up everything when the family's coming back.
Yeah.
And the pacing is so perfect, and it's timed with the music, and each member of the family are doing all of these other chaotic scenes, and then all of a sudden that switch to them hiding under the table. I mean, just the pacing in this movie is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there are scenes that aren't eventful and they're kind of slow, the overall like feel and pacing of this entire film stays the same throughout, even when, there's nothing really happening. And that is an achievement in editing. There isn't a flaw in the editing, in my opinion. I'm giving this an 8 out of 8, 8%.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that the editing is super, super strong. Everything is so cohesive. You never get lost with this film. And I think it's partially because of the cinematography. They do a lot of long shots. The shots, like, I'll take the birthday party scene, for example. That is a scene with, like, so much action. Like, there's some stabbing going on. In, like, a regular Hollywood action movie, they're putting, like, so many cuts. It's, like, so intense. Here, it's so cohesive. Like, you can see everything that's happening. They don't splice together these fast cuts that that make it too over the top. They really, really pace everything super nicely. I totally agree with you. I think that the editing is really, really strong. I totally agree with you. I think it's an 8% out of 8. I honestly agree. It should have won Best Editing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we have 3 more categories left before we tally up our total percentage. We are moving on to acting. This is a big category.
Big
acting.
category. 10
You wanna start it
points
off?
up for grabs. Yeah, I like the acting in this film. I think it's so well cast. I'm going to talk about the casting for a second because they did such a good job, and it might get overlooked, but like every single character, it just works. Like both the fathers of the household, yes, they're both fathers, but they cast like such different looking people. Mr. Kim is like this he looks like he's, had some struggles in his life. Mr. Park just looks like this elite businessman. And I think the acting is also so good. They all play their characters so well. No two characters are played like the same way. Everyone is unique, and it does really give you that ensemble vibe. I didn't really think there were any actors who did a bad job. I mean, I'm never really a fan of child actors, so I guess that, the son actor at times you can tell that he's not really at the same level as everyone, but you can't blame him. He's probably like 8. Yeah, I think it's a 9 out of 10. I really like the acting.
9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, I agree. The overall chemistry of every character in this film is like perfect, and they won Best Ensemble at the SAG Awards.
Oh, nice.
And that was huge, but that was also really well deserved because they do have an amazing chemistry and they all play off each other so well. But for me, the standouts acting wise is the sister.
Yeah.
Her name is Jung Kim. That's the actor's name.
Right. Okay.
She gave a phenomenal performance that's both funny and also like really just like kind of unsettling. You can see it in her eyes that she's
a bit crazy.
And there's also that connection. Yeah. But there's that connection that they have a line in the film where they say like, "Oh, you like fit in with this house." Like she gives off that vibe that she fits. And then also there's that connection that she's the one who dies, she's the one that gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of that, which is screenplay, but she gave a phenomenal performance. The other one is the father. The father just he's so good in his subtlety, he acts with his eyes.
I agree.
Like that scene where he sees him plugging his nose, or he hears them make a comment in the back of the car. He doesn't say anything, but you can just see it through his eyes what he's thinking.
And he doesn't even move his eyebrows. You could just you could just tell. Like I don't even know how he does it. He just keeps a straight face, but you can just tell. Maybe it is a bit screenplay, but I totally agree. He's a phenomenal actor.
The only problems I have with the acting is there are some, I agree, child actors in this film. Especially the 2 kids in the Park family. There's just moments where they're not up to the same caliber. There's also just like, there's just some of the more minor characters like the driver and other stuff.
Yeah, I did think he was pretty weak.
It's not bad. Yeah, but it's just like, it feels like they are acting,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10% for acting.
Yeah. Okay. I see you. All right, last 2 categories. These are kind of the overarching big ones. These are not specific to one aspect. These are kind of overall. First, we have entertainment value. This is just straight up, how entertaining is it? Are you captivated throughout the whole thing? I'll take a stab at this one, I guess. It's super entertaining. Like the way it's structured, the way everything plays out, it keeps you engaged the whole time. Sometimes even when I really love a movie, there are some points where it's like, oh, okay, this is like the slow scene, or this is the part where they're like giving the exposition. If you've watched it more than once, you can kind of tune out during this part. Every time you watch this film, you're going to watch it front to back and not be bored by any parts, even if you've seen it before. Like, it's enthralling. The only real weak spot is the ending, because it does kind of take you out a bit, because you're like, oh, why didn't it end earlier? But other than that, it is super entertaining, captivating. Even though it's not, your crazy action movie, it's really, really entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is the thing that makes this film so good, is how unpredictable it is.
Yes.
And even though this is a story that we've seen before, it constantly is taking twists and turns, and that the first time I watched this movie, I would always think something was going to happen, and then all of a sudden it would take a total 180 and go a different direction. And that's what makes this film so captivating and keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I never get bored watching this movie. I mean, when I watched this before we were doing this podcast, that was my third time watching it, and I still was not bored watching it. I still enjoyed every little bit of it. I agree with you. The ending is the only part that pulls you out. For me, it pulls me out that last 10 minutes where I'm like, oh, okay, come on, end. That would have been a perfect spot. That's when it pulls you out, and all of a sudden you realize you're watching a movie and you're not as captivated anymore. And then also there's a couple scenes in there that I feel were maybe too long, or just kind of, the dialogue doesn't feel really important. But overall, especially due to the editing and the pacing of this film is just super entertaining. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10% also, an 8%. So you gave it 9%.
I give it 9%. Maybe that's due to the fact I've only watched it twice, so maybe there's something in that third watch that just, makes it less entertaining. But
it's also that I don't like the ending.
Yeah.
Way more than you.
Yeah, I think the ending's okay. I think you hate on the ending a bit too much, bro. Come on. It's not that bad. It's not 1%. That's gonna be the lowest ending you give out of any of these on the list.
Nah, I'm really harsh with endings.
Okay, I see you. Alright. Okay. Final category. We got overall technical achievement. You can kind of
so this is more
that.
focusing on all of the technical stuff. Editing, camera, cinematography, sound, all of that mushed together for overall technical achievement. This one's a huge one. This one is worth 15%.
Yeah, and it's less about kind of individually and more how they kind of play into each other, I guess. So as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so as we've gone through all of these categories, I think you're pretty much aware of where we are on the overall technical standpoint. Editing is phenomenal. I gave it an 8 out of 8. The editing is just so good in this film. The cinematography is strong, even though me personally, I felt there were moments that it could have been better. The cinematography is just really good in this film. And then the sound design. Even though the sound design, there's nothing spectacular that happens, but if you look at the flood scene with all that rain coming down and the sound you would have to deal with all of that rainfall and water slushing around, there's so much aspects that go into the sound editing and sound mixing that was great. Also, sound design, the whole ambience of everything, how all of a sudden there's just silence, and then it really encapsulates you. You can hear dogs barking or birds chirping in the background. And then all of a sudden at night, when there's that tone shift before we have the basement scene, it's just silent. And there's it's those little things like that add so much to the atmosphere of the film. So yeah, I mean, even though there are tiny flaws and some just overall simplistic elements of the technical, it's really well done, and there aren't many flaws, so therefore I'm going to give it a 14 out of 15%.
All right. For me, I've kind of been repeating myself a little bit throughout the whole thing, but there's just something about this film that is so incredibly simple. There is nothing really that is just this this crazy out there moment. Like, this film is totally, it's so relatable. Everything about it is just, it's so simple, and yet at the same time all the technical aspects are like so beautiful. Every part of it, it's like this huge machine, you know, and it all works together so flawlessly that there's not really one part that is kind of weakening the whole thing. That the technical aspects of this film totally enhance the story. The way it's shot, the way it's edited, lit, everything about it. It really does enhance the story. Yeah. I think if they filmed this kind of in any different style, it might have taken away a little bit, but it actually really makes the story benefit from kind of this simple, serene vibe they go for. Everything with the house, it's really grand, as you'd expect with this large mansion. Everything fits, you know, Foley and stuff. I never really noticed. That's the big thing with this. You're never gonna notice anything. I kind of find it's so kind of captivating because nothing takes you out of the experience. There's nothing that feels out of place when you're watching it. All the elements just blend together so perfectly that you hardly realize, you can't even really think about any of them. You're just watching what's happening.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I think it's 14% out of 15. While it is all those things, it's not necessarily kind of like revolutionary or anything, or like pushing film to new ground, so I can't quite give it that perfect score, but yeah, I think it's a 14 out of 15. All right.
So let's what is your, okay, how are we gonna do this? We gotta give out our total percentages. This is big. This is huge.
This is big. This is kind of like our final score. So I guess like what's gonna happen is we're both gonna give our own, and then we're gonna
average it out. Okay, I will give my total percentage.
Right.
Okay, after adding it all up with all 12 categories and my percentage for each one, out of 100%, Parasite got a total percentage of 84%.
Ooh, very good.
That's pretty big.
That may seem low, but if you really think about it, that's like an average of 1 point off of every category plus 2.
Yeah.
So
like,
yeah,
84% is big. I was expecting it to be higher, honestly, when I first tallied this up.
Bro, you
but
dumped on that.
Now that
ending.
I think about it, it was the ending. It's the ending that knocks us down so much. And unfortunately, an ending is what sticks with you when you leave a movie theater, or when you finish a movie. The ending is what sticks. So if you don't have a great ending, unfortunately, that's gonna slide down your film a little bit. But yeah, total percentage of 84%. What is yours?
My total percent is a 90%. So
wow.
It's cracked the 90 barrier. Yeah, I
90s.
totally think that this is not only the best film of last year, probably the best film I've seen. I'm trying to think of what even tops it. Like, probably since like 2015. I think that this is, of the latter half of the 2010s, best film. And it's honestly up there of the whole decade, and honestly of all time. I think that this will go down as kind of a legendary film, and it's very important too, because
It really will.
it's a foreign film for us North Americaners. It's not in our language, and to win Best Picture, to be this incredible experience, it's really one of a kind. There's not many other movies like it.
Yeah.
So I think a 90 is pretty well deserved, and our average percentage is 87%.
Yeah, I just tallied it up.
So I guess
87%. So we got 90% from Ben, 84%, and that gave us an 87% average.
Yeah.
So that is our first one. And what we're going to do is, as we go along with each film each week, we will keep adding to this list. I don't know where we're going to... I guess we'll keep updating it on our Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, we'll have it on our Instagram, which is
we have an 87%.
s.q.f.s. Slightly qualified film students.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of our joint score is an 87% for this film. That's an A-. That's pretty good. And I think that you'll find that that's going to be like one of our highest rated, because this is
a
fantastic film. I can't like stress this enough.
Yeah.
This is incredible. Everyone should go watch this right now and tell all your friends about it, because it is one of a kind and it is really good.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have completed our entire analysis, discussion, review on Parasite, we are going to spin the film wheel.
Yeah.
This is huge.
So
this
there's
is exciting.
100 films, Parasite excluded, and Lucas is going to spin the wheel and come up with what film we're going to review next week.
Yeah, so on our film wheel, we will always have 100 films, and then we'll take one off every time we land on one.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a couple film series in here, like we have the Harry Potter series, the Godfather trilogy, the Before trilogy. We also have the entire MCU as a whole.
That's going to be interesting if it ever lands on that.
I'm kind of terrified to land on that one.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to do that. We're going to have to like make
happens,
special categories or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I have no clue how we're going to do that, but hopefully we just get a singular film this time.
Yeah, all right.
But yes, there are 100 on there. And also, we want to tell you guys that if you have any films that you would like us to talk about, if you throw those in the comments or throw those in a rating or whatever, or email us, we will have that on a list. And then every time we delete a film off of this wheel, we'll add one on. So your film could 100% get added on eventually.
Yeah,
onto this
and we'll
wheel.
Watch it and judge you.
Yeah.
You better pick good ones.
I'm gonna
or bad ones.
I'm gonna
too.
spin the wheel.
Okay, spin it.
I'm going to spin the wheel. I have the volume up so we can hear it. Oh, you know what? I gotta screen record this.
Oh
so that I
yeah,
have
for
proof.
sure.
And I'm pressing record. Click to record the full screen. Yes, click. Okay. We're recording. Here we go.
All right. Spin that wheel.
We're spinning the wheel. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh. Do. We have landed on.
What is it?
The film that we have landed on is Inglourious Bastards.
Ooh, great film. One of my favorites. That is pretty hype.
This is huge.
All right.
We got two great films
back to back
right here.
These are good ones. Hold on. Let me read the plot synopsis off of IMDb. Okay, Inglourious Bastards.
Get you guys hyped.
A few Jewish soldiers are on an undercover mission to bring down the Nazi government and put an end to the war. Meanwhile, a woman wants to avenge the death of her family from a German officer. Ooh. Directed by Tarantino, narrated by Samuel L. Jackson, and the screenplay is also by Tarantino. Released in 2009. Great cast, all-star cast. Christopher Waltz, Brad Pitt, Eli Roth, obviously, Diane Kruger. This is a really nice film, so if you guys want to watch it and then you guys can kind of understand what we're talking about a bit in the next review, that is definitely something you should do. And we're going to watch this and
guys,
take rigorous notes.
Yep. I'm excited to rewatch this film. I haven't watched it in a couple years.
Oh god, I've watched it like 6
exciting.
times at this point. I've watched it many times.
I think I've seen it twice.
It's on Netflix too, so this one's
easy.
You don't even have to pirate it.
Yeah.
On Netflix, you guys can go watch it.
This is easy for you guys. So everyone go watch Inglourious Bastards. Get ready, and then next week you'll be able to tune into this episode and hear what we've got to say about it.
Yeah.
We're going to do the same thing we did this week, really dive deep into it. But this is awesome.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Those who did.
Thank you guys for listening. That
was Parasite.
And we'll see you next week with Inglourious Bastards.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments as well as your thoughts on the film.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.